Ice barriers. This one likes to go second, and it's the most traditional way to run ice barriers, going so far as to be lore accurate in the way it plays. I'll only mention specific effects to keep this super simple. Not to say this deck itself is simple. It can do some pretty crazy shit that's just way too convoluted to explain this all. I also won't dedicate any time on super specific combos. Ice barriers, in my opinion, are flexible enough to not need to focus on performing specific loops, with each card in the archetype sort of having their own potential to flip the duel around. Ice Barrier. It's the trap card in the deck. As a decent on-field effect that usually serves as the only out to massive or oppressive mons, to lower an attacking monster's attack to 0, as well as negate their effects while they remain on the field. That effect isn't once per turn either, which does come up. What is once per turn, more importantly, is the better effect, the Graveyard effect. It locks you into water monsters until the end of your next turn, but it's fine if you only stick to water monsters anyways. One of those Sword Soul synchros is water, right? Totally awesome, and the Ice Barrier synchros are all water. Shoot, so is Crystron Halqifibrax. The only attribute should be water. Anyways, for the effect of Ice Barrier, you can banish it from the graveyard to mill a level 5 or higher water monster. Then you have the option of adding a water monster from your graveyard to your hand. Normally, you would use it on your first turn by discarding it somehow to gain access to General Wayne, which gets you access to the rest of your deck. You do this with Foolish Burial or any of the discard effects in the deck. I've considered using Twin Twisters for that reason. The flexibility of this card means you could also use it for other shit. I use it to search the Turtle Kaiju in Gamma CL. I mill it and then add it to the hand, all in one effect. The card added to the hand also does not have to be the monster that you sent to the graveyard, which is just another added layer of flexibility there. Revealer is the most important card to get out onto the field. She gets you a lot of advantage, so you wouldn't be wrong in using Lost Winds to take a hidden advantage for a second for her presence on the field or the graveyard. Remember, she has a graveyard effect, and there are no restrictions on who can use it outside of the monster being an Ice Barrier monster. The graveyard effect of Lost Winds is the only not very intrusive way to recur banished Ice Barrier monsters too. Sadly, it won't activate on the turn it's sent to the graveyard for some dumb reason, but that's good enough for rebuilding your board when your turn comes around. You want Zweijin and Prior in the graveyard as soon as possible, which is pretty easy to do if you use Revealer to special summon Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier. With 2 monsters out in the field, I normally recommend summoning Marincess Coral Anemone if you're using this deck in particular. You really can go crazy with Ice Barriers if you want, but most players I end up going for involve me planning out a proper defensive against my opponent's second turn. An example of this is when I can attack for a game, but I can still make Trishula or something. Instead of using Trishula as the defensive wall after using its effect, you could try instead of Crystron Halq so you can go into Formula Synchron on your opponent's turn for a quick effect synchro summon that leads to either a board wipe or that Trishula removal. Prior has an effect to be able to special summon itself from your hand. All of its effects are not once per turn. Prior and Speaker can make some pretty neat link plays just by themselves. If you forego using the Ice Barrier trap card and Revealer's effect, and focus on only the lower level monsters, you can make a cool link or low rank XE spam deck that goes into any attribute. Zweijin is great in this deck as an extra material to push for game on your second turn, or to get a higher level main deck monster out into the field from your hand. This works with any of the higher level main deck Ice Barrier monsters, but it's really only good for slower builds. Gentala to get Warlock out into the field is pretty good. Raiho blows your opponent's minds. It's very helpful for Legacy fans, which is just great. It does need to banish itself if it was special summoned with its own effect. Whatever, dude. The higher level main deck Ice Barrier mons, they aren't bad actually, and kind of worth experimenting with if you're into the hard defensive playstyle. Judge is a card with recursion abilities that I decided not to use. I have tried it, but whenever I needed her effect, it was always because I was goofing off, or something very specific was going on. Switching a Nibiru I couldn't attack over into defense position is not enough of a reason to play her. I don't know, she might have some hidden potential I'm just not seeing though. The other cards to consider in Ice Barrier strats are Frogs, Crystrons, Aqua Actress, Mermails, Marincess, Gradles, anything of the water attribute, support for the water attribute, highly specific water attribute, boss monsters, spellcasters or spellcaster support, and floodgate effects. You can find any of these cards in most simulators by searching keywords like water, frog, or spellcaster. I don't recommend using my deck with the thought that it's the best deck I can think of. Instead, use it assuming you can make it better than it is now, because Meta Ice Barrier is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and it makes me very happy. Thanks for watching today's video. I wish you luck on your duels. You have yourself a nice day.
Squash out.